When you create your brand with intention, uh, and you bring like clarity to that process, and you base it on work that you've done with clients and work you understand about yourself, about what the value is that you're bringing, then the brand, this multifaceted brand is going to be clear to people. And you won't be like stuck in a box where you have to be the same thing all the time, but you'll be able to say, yeah, there are several different qualities to this brand, and yet there is a consistent through line to everything that we're bringing you. Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This is season 16, and we are talking about powerful questions. One of the powerful questions came up today as I was working with a current client on a presentation she was doing for potential clients. So she's got this presentation, we're going through it together just to see kind of like business flow and things like that. And right at the beginning, she has a section where she says, who we are. And as we looked at that together, I thought, oh, we have not worked on brand yet. She's been so busy enrolling clients. We've been working on her transformational engagements, raising prices on past clients, just busy in the work. And we haven't really done this one piece, which is a foundational piece that I very often will do when I come into work with new clients. And like I said, we've just been so busy like in the work that we haven't done this piece yet. So when in the work do we work on who we are and how we talk about ourselves? This is really a question of brand, and brand is a unique business identity. So when do we talk about that? Is that this thing like we're starting a business, we're going to have a new thing, and let's figure out what our brand is going to be? Kind of, but really it's ideal to do it the way that she's done it. She's been in business for a few years and has developed an identity, and I would say a reputation based on the work. So she's known in her field, like a lot of consultants. And you might be known too. Like you have a peer group that you're known to, you have a client base that you're known to. And after a few years, like you want to be able to talk about what you're doing. It's okay to go ahead and make some statements at the beginning when you kind of like are guessing at what you're doing. But she's really in the ideal place to for us to create this like brand statement. And sometimes we can call it a brand positioning statement. And so what the questions that we're looking at this point are, when you answer the question, who we are, like, what do we say? And what do you want to be known for or known as? To me, this is like the most consequential question for you as a business owner, as you're thinking about it. Like, what do you want to be known for or known as? That's like the vision or mission and the identity. And from that emerges like this brand language and the brand positioning statement. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit, talk about like how we formulate that phrase or the statement of who we are, what we want to include in it. And then I'm going to cover some frequently asked questions that I get, because I get questions about this all the time from the consultants that I work with. So first, I do think it's important for us to have clients and then create a brand. The reason for that is you begin to see who is attracted to your work. You hear how they talk about you. You might have colleagues or referral partners and hear how they talk about you. How do they introduce you to other people? And it's really good to kind of base your brand language in actual language that clients use. So I'm going to give you some examples of that later, but really specifically, when you have clients who are talking about you, you want to capture that. And when people write that they enjoyed something, you want to probe deeper than that and say, what specifically did you enjoy? Or what was your specific takeaway? Or can you tell me, was this beneficial? How did this benefit you? We want to listen for very specific language and mirror that back, like repeat that back to our clients. The cool thing about that is if you have one client and an ideal or perfect client, right? Somebody who you've worked with who you're like, oh, I want more just like them. You can ask them about their experience of working with you and listen for the language they use. So why did you bring me in? What was going on for you? And how would you describe what was going on for you? what was, and we talked about this last time, like what was a problem for you and what was particularly problematic about that? Like, why was that a problem? Listening for that language is giving you your clients specific language. What was it like once we solved that? Like, what outcome did you want? What was it like once you had that outcome? And what are really the benefits of that? If you were thinking about working with me or doing this yourself, why would you choose to work with me? What would be the benefits of working with me? Now, it might feel like fishing for compliments, but these are the kind of conversations that my clients are having with their clients, and I'm having with my own clients and with also with their clients on their behalf. You want to be having these conversations. It isn't fishing for compliments. It's like, I want to understand what the value is. And when you understand the value, you can share that value with others. You can price your services accordingly. Like everything is based on the value that you deliver. And we cannot know what the value is unless we ask them. It's kind of like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Value is in the perception of our clients. Like they tell us what's valuable. And this is what's kind of crazy is you may have this like super hot service and you're like, this is the most valuable thing I've ever put together. You put it out there and no one buys it. Like no clients are interested in that. Have you ever had that experience? I've seen this time after time where somebody's like, I have this super hot new program. And then they put it out and nobody responds to it. It's because that's not what people want. And then they have another one where people keep buying it. I've had plenty of people come to me and be like, well, that old thing, why does that keep selling? I don't understand. Well, ask them, what does it do? And they're like, this thing was super valuable. Whenever I have clients go through one of my programs, I'll always ask them what aspect of that, like what's the thing that I gave you, a tool or a specific experience or in any particular class or topic, what was the most valuable one of those and why was that valuable? Okay. So that's a long dive into the client experience. And I want you to zoom back out from that and be like, okay, so now what's your identity based on that? What are these aspects of your brand that you want to be known for? When we're starting out, if you're too new, it's too hard to guess at what the answers to those questions are going to be. What will clients find valuable about us? What will be different about us? So it really helps if you can do this once you've been in business for a little while. The other thing is if you feel like your language is out of date, it's a good idea to do this again. Like figure out what this brand statement is going to be. The important thing about brand positioning statements is that they are done intentionally. So today it was a little problematic because we kind of wrote her statement on the fly for this presentation. You know, she had kind of like a draft, and then I was like, well, this language and this language. And then we kind of cobbled this together, had a little chat GPT fun there. But that's done on the fly. We're going to come back and revisit that and have a definitive statement for this. What's the difference between like, hey, we just put this together and it sounds pretty good, and then like the definitive statement? In the definitive statement, and I have spent hours in corporate working on this kinds of thing. These are super important. If you're in a corporate setting, they're going to wordsmith each word of this thing until it is like dead. You know this word, it's this word, and it's no other word in the entire vocabulary of the language. You've got to do the same thing with yours. A positioning statement is concise, it's specific, and every single word in there is selected intentionally. So, is it dynamic or is it innovative? Are you a visionary or are you a genius? What else do we look at? World class, excellent, top tier. Like, which of these words are the words that you want to use? Because you're going to use those words over and over and over and over again. I'm not revealing anything secret when I say that within the brand positioning statement at the Coca-Cola company, two of the words they're using are delicious and refreshing. So they went to consumers, they said, hey, take a drink of it. What's it taste like? And consumers apparently said, it's delicious. Awesome. They don't say it's yummy. They don't say it's anything else. They're saying specifically it's delicious. And also they're saying it's refreshing. What does refreshing mean? It means when you drink it, you go, ah, that means it's refreshing. That's the definition of refreshing, right? Do they say, it makes tastes good, or it makes me feel like lighter after I've had it? No. Delicious and refreshing are the two words. Here's what happens after hundreds of years, because that brand is over 100 years old, because they've taught consumers the language to use whenever you ask them now, how was that Coke? They're like, it was delicious or it was refreshing. So it's kind of a perpetuating thing. The interesting thing I experienced personally, having a little brand compared to the Coca-Cola company, my small brand, Enlightened Marketing. For years, this was the name of my business, Enlightened Marketing. People would go through my programs, or they would have calls with me, or they would experience me and my brand. And I would ask for takeaways, just as we've been talking about. I would say, hey, what was your experience of working with me like? And what was your takeaway from the class? And what was your experience here? And they would say it was enlightening. Disproportionate amount of time, someone would say it was enlightening. I didn't tell them to say that. I never said what I was doing was enlightening, but it was the name of the business. So they're expecting enlightenment when they come to enlightened marketing, and that's going to be woven through their language. So I can kind of promise that, although I never did, you can kind of promise that things are going to be enlightening. Think about that for your own branded language. So branded language, what is that? We're going to choose words that we're going to use, and then we're going to use them over and over and over again. So we're going to say delicious. We're not going to say yummy. We're going to say enlightened marketing. We're not going to say it's whatever other kind of marketing. That's the name of the business. And whatever I'm going to talk about, I'm going to say aligns with your values. Effective techniques that align with your values. That was the tagline of my business forever. So keep that in mind, that you're going to select language and then you're going to use it consistently. You don't want any variations in it because you want people to learn it and repeat it back just as they've done with that branded language from Coca-Cola. Okay. When you develop branded language, you get to you can trademark your language. You can fight other people who are using your language. You want to talk about things. And this is one of the ways that we can get differentiation. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but it's one of the ways that we can get differentiation is to talk about your stuff, your way with your branded language. So I'm going to share my message in a minute and you'll hear some of my branded language. But for example, if you've heard me talk about transformational engagements, that's my branded language for a long-term, high-value project that we do with a client. You could, a consulting project, you could call it other things, but I'm calling it a transformational engagement because I have a definition of what that is very specific. I've got a lot of other branded language because this is a thing that I bring to my business and also for my clients. I want you to talk about your stuff in a specific way. And very often when I'm working with a client on their business, they'll say something and I'm like that, what you just said there, that's your branded language. It's specific to you and use that over and over again. So today with my client, we were on the fly quickly choosing some better options, but you really want to be intentional about it for your brand. So I've talked in previous episodes about this, but I want to talk about the components of a marketing message because you're going to have that brand identity and that's great. But at a certain point, you're going to have to put it into language. It's going to have to be 2 or 3 lines on a screen on a slide that says who we are, right? We do what? So we do what is we work with who. So the first component of a marketing message is the who. Who do you work with? And you're going to name your perfect client with psychographics and demographics. It means, are they motivated home buyers or are they, in my case, they are women consultants. Name who they are. I can say women management consultants if I'm in a situation where I need to be more specific about that audience, but you're going to name that who first. The second thing that we're going to get into is the problem. You have to clearly state what the problem or challenge is that you solve for your clients. In most consulting messages, the most powerful way to do your message is to talk about the problem that you solve. Organizations, B2B, it's just going to be much more powerful. In rare exceptions, you would have a more aspirational message. So I can have a more aspirational message if I say something like, I work with women consultants who, the problem version of this would be, are stuck on the revenue roller coaster. That's branded language, by the way. Revenue roller coaster is branded language. Does it mean that nobody else in the entire world is using it? No, I didn't trademark it because it was a little, it's out in the common parlance, but that I'm using that language consistently. So what does that mean? It means I don't say feast famine. I don't say ups and downs, peaks and valleys. I say revenue roller coaster. because when I say that, my people know what I mean. So I work with women consultants who are on the revenue roller coaster. Now, that's a problem statement. The aspirational version of this, and this would describe the client I was working with today. I work with women consultants who are at maximum capacity and don't know how to grow without burning themselves out. So my client today, very successful, but really wants to go further in her business and needed to know how to do that. So that's a problem statement, a problem statement and an aspiration statement. You can see the difference in them. It's totally a discernment exercise, which you're going to go with. But in my experience, 95% of the time, you're going to have a more powerful message if you go through the problem. The problems activate more parts of our brain. And you'll notice this is why almost all news is bad news, because those negative headlines get our attention. Oh, but am I playing into the negative headlines if I do that? Well, here's the deal. Here's the way I think about it. People that you want to help, they are responding to that negative message because they see themselves in it. And your mileage may vary, so test it both ways. The next piece of this, we go problem, the who, so the target audience, then we go the problem, then we go the outcome. What's the opposite of the thing they have right now? So if they don't have capacity to grow, I'm going to help them to dramatically increase revenues without exhaustion. That's my promise. And I actually promise that to both. If you're stuck on the revenue roller coaster, I also promise I'm going to help you dramatically increase your revenues without exhaustion. And then there's a little more information about it. This is an optional thing you can add to your messaging, which is the how we do what we do. Without getting into boring process, you can say something like, by working exclusively with perfect clients on what I call transformational engagements. Now, what I call is my little way of introducing, there's about to be some branded language, which you might not know what I mean when I say it, but because I've said what I call, you're like, oh, okay, I see. It's a thing. It's a little turn of phrase. And that gets us into the outcome and a little bit of the process if you want to add a little flourish like that. Last piece of this is benefits. Benefits usually come after something like, so they can, or, and as a result, we have a little expression like that says, once they have that thing that they wanted, then they can, whatever the next piece of that is the benefit of it. In my case, so they can experience profitable and joyful consultancies. Does that sound familiar? That is branded language. You're going to hear that everywhere from me. What kind of a consulting business are they going to have? Oh, a peaceful, easy one? Are they going to have like an abundant one, a growing one? No, it's going to be profitable and joyful. That's the language that I have chosen out of all of the possible language in the world that I want to promise my perfect clients. If you work with me, you're going to have a profitable, what other kind would we want? And joyful, I don't want profits at the risk of joy, profitable and joyful consulting business. Could I have added like 10 more words there of like other qualities of that kind of business, of your consulting business? Sure, I could have. But these are two. Ideally, you want to get to when you have a benefit or a promise. If you can promise like one thing that nobody else is, that's great. But, that's really hard to come up with, like that single thing. Two is awesome if you can do it. So profitable, joyful. And then three is the maximum if you're going to do that, and never more than three, because three is a perfect number. There's the Trinity. There's all of these reasons that our mind remembers three, etc. So last time over the formula, target audience, we work with this target audience who has this problem or challenge. If you want to try it, you can do an aspiration. It can help just to have like a little optional aspiration. Wants to get this outcome. And when they do, as a result, they experience this benefit. So that is the structure of messaging. Okay, so a couple of frequently asked questions that I get. The first one is, I need to have a differentiation. We have to be differentiated. I've got to be differentiated. Here's the deal. There's only so many ways that you can differentiate an offer to a certain organization. There's only so many ways that a management consultant can be different. You can brainstorm those like crazy, and you may be able to come up with some, but I feel like the better thing to do is be like, the differentiator is you. Get in there with a clear message for your people, and you're going to have all the business you need. Think about it. Who is a perfect client for you? Really specifically, who you want to work with. what you're bringing them. Think about that and how to put that into words. Like really focus on that identity and then the messaging. And you, like somebody else is going to also have a similar messaging to that. And they may even use the exact same words as you, but nobody is you. And like that's the thing that we can rest on. Why do I say this? Because in the very early days of my business, as I have reported elsewhere on this podcast, I had carefully crafted a brand, and then 30 seconds later, somebody came along and imitated it. And then I looked at that website and that website and that website, and it was like, there was my positioning, there was my positioning. And I was like, okay, guess what? Other people came out of the Coca-Cola company. Other people do a combination of spiritual and earth, practical marketing stuff. That was what I was doing back then. Okay, fine, but nobody's me. So my people want me. Your people want you, and you're not going to be able to be differentiated from anybody out there in the entire world. So I would just not get obsessed about the differentiation thing. Second question, don't I need a niche or a niche? I pronounce it niche because it rhymes with rich. Do you need a niche? If you're new, do not niche too early because you want to welcome as much potential business as can come to you. And if you niche, meaning talk about a narrow specific focus too soon in your business, then people are like, oh, well, they do this and not this. And then you might lose out on business at a point when it's really better for you to have more business, to have more experiences. It's okay for you to say, well, since I came out of X company and I'm good at this, I do this work. Like my former role, I was a CMO and now I'm doing fractional CMO. Okay, for what kinds of companies? It's okay to say that. But if that kind of company came to you, would you be able to work with them? If so, then don't get too specific about what you can do. It's better in the beginning to keep it a little broader. Now, once you figure out what you love and what you rock at, it's okay to start to niche from there. But doing that too soon can, put you at a disadvantage. And I don't want you to have to recreate your brand and like expand it back out because you niched down too much. And that transitions me into the third question that I get about like, I will see people in small businesses, especially, revise their message a lot, like a lot, a lot. And after a while, people are like, I don't know what they do because it's different every time I look. Like yesterday it was this and today it's this. You have to get traction in your message. And traction means you need to say the same basic thing over and over again until people learn it. That's key for us to remember. It's delicious and refreshing. So we learn it. It's profitable and joyful. And that's the kind of business that I want. So figure out what you're going to do and then stick with it. What's the exception to this? Well, it's been a few years and I noticed that my clients are evolving. So as I mentioned earlier, I used to have enlightened marketing as my main brand. And then I decided marketing is limiting me. I'm doing more things that are far beyond marketing. And I've been doing that for a while. And I'm no longer working broadly with small businesses. I'm working more specifically with management consultants. And so I began to brand under my name and just transition to doing that. So you can evolve your brand, just don't be redoing your message like every 5 minutes so that no one can ever learn it. What I want to conclude with is a brand is like a prism. And so a prism is like, if you imagine, like a crystal, which has like a pyramid shape, and it's got many sides and this bottom. Each side is a facet of the brand, right? A face. Each side is a facet. And then the middle part of it, like if it's a solid thing, the middle of it stays the same. To me, this is what a brand is. When different people come to you, or when you're writing different posts on LinkedIn, or when you're like, you have different facets that you're showing of that brand, but the thing which is inside of it is consistent. And they need to be consistent and make sense. It needs to make sense that this is all part of a whole thing. When you create your brand with intention, and you bring like clarity to that process, and you base it on work that you've done with clients and work you understand about yourself, about what the value is that you're bringing, then the brand, this multifaceted brand is going to be clear to people. And you won't be like stuck in a box where you have to be the same thing all the time, but you'll be able to say, Yeah, there are several different qualities to this brand, and yet there is a consistent through line to everything that we're bringing you. It can be really complicated to do brand work. And so this is one of the areas that I really specialize in working with my clients on. And I would invite you, if you feel like it's time for you to either establish an identity or reestablish a new identity, then I would love to talk with you about that. You can find me through the socials. And with that, I'm wishing you a profitable and joyful consulting business.